What's up, everyone? This is Soul with another video, and we're going to finally do a tour of the house that I created along with Stef Sanjati for Azeroth Interiors. It's going to be kind of weird because I make distinctions between what is a tour versus what is a visit. I know that the whole vernacular or the whole terminology, it's kind of a thing that I take seriously on a personal level, although like people just like saying tours, whatever. But this time I am going to do a tour, because I know all the ins and outs of this place. I know the history, I know everything that went behind it. Unlike a visit, which is more like this exploration sort of thing, but I'm gonna try to come at it with that sort of energy anyway. Please like the video, subscribe for more stuff. I'm kind of ripping this one. I don't really have much of anything rehearsed, so this is gonna take a while to go through. So for those folks who are like who really want to nerd out over housing, this is your time. For those who are not, sorry, but this is something that I had a whole lot of fun doing. It was such a treat to be part of this competition. It was a treat to work alongside Stef to put this together, and there were some amazing creations out there, and I want to acknowledge the effort that that everyone else put into this competition as well. Honestly, I'm surprised I won. There was a really good house that was put together by Preach and his staff. I think Chunky Ninja is his handle. They put together a fantastic place. It was a very good performance. They had like some wonderful execution. I love the effects. I love the camera work that the Blizzard team managed to support them with. It looked really good. But I gotta kind of look back and think to myself, the reason that I think, this is gonna sound obviously really biased because it's coming from me. So y'all can judge however you like too. But I think one of the reasons my build came out on top was because of the rules. Let me pull this up. So here are the rules, or here was the judging criteria: creativity, as in originality, execution, cohesion, and alignment. So we learned these things like early on as to how they were going to judge these things. And so even before I had talked with Stef about what they wanted to put together, I knew that I would be mostly focusing on something like this under the assumption that I would be the builder. I wasn't sure if I was going to be the builder or not. And eventually when Steph and I did talk, and we're kind of like going over like, oh, who's got the big wallet, little wallet, or who has the most like decor or the most housing level, it was going to be me that was doing it. And so I centered mostly on this. I wanted to make something that is very grounded, something that I guess a goal is I wanted to walk into a place that anyone can walk into and people would think a Warcraft level designer put this together. It's unmistakably like has that Warcraft kind of vibe and feel to it. And I wanted to avoid what's the term, kit bashing. Now it's a cool thing when we can like get like a cool stove and piece all these little things together to make this amazing and convincing looking thing that looks like real life, right? It's very cool. And that's something that you saw a lot of. Well, you didn't exactly see it in Preach's build, but you saw a lot of like different pieces that were put together to create something that's entirely different and very unique and original, but not necessarily Warcraft. The whole spaceship idea, like I said, it was really cool with the portals and everything. But I wanted to keep something that felt grounded and something that felt like I had a sense of familiarity when you come in. And so that's why I feel like mostly going around, mostly focusing on alignment is what made the build feel really effective. Other folks went crazy, like Taliesin's build. It was like really cool with like the creativity. He made a freaking treadmill and all that. The performance that came from Preach with the execution, it was awesome. Really good. But the judges had to work with something, and I think that whatever they decided or whatever they whatever decision making that they came from, I think that making something that just felt very Warcraft, it just happened to be what edged things out. So it didn't have to win, or I didn't have to win, and it would have been awesome anyway. But yeah, that I guess that's kind of my whole thing, because I still feel really humbled about it. I'm still surprised that we won, because I think it was much closer than anyone would have thought. So we're going to do the visit, or we're going to do the tour, and it's going to have, kind of have this mix of, hey, this whole wonder and exploration sort of vibe, but I'll also be able to speak to like just about everything here. So strap in, buddies. We're in for a trip. So as soon as we walk in, I wanted to have folks, I wanted to have it kind of immediately open up into something that, something wide like this. And the intent here was to create like the sort of interior of a giant tree, or like this giant natural structure of sorts. And the spaces would be carved out. So we would have like these very small rooms, very tight, windy spaces. That's how I was like pitching this to Steph. And what she asked for was just lots of growth, lots of nature. I just want it spill on all over the place, which helped to fit that vision of trying to, again, create this sort of like interior of like a tree or a natural space. And so that's why you have like this initial setup here. I should also cut to how the layout actually looks. So here's the floor plan right here. This is the first floor. You can't really see the second floor because it's full of trees. And it's a bit too much. So the configuration of this place is just 4 empty stairwell rooms. Now, the original concept that I had was, okay, let me just, maybe I can have like the center here be like a big tree of sorts. And so I was starting to like smash trees together into the center area in such a way that I'd be able to obscure the walls and everything. And then we would be kind of like doing this large circular climb around this tree. And so I started doing something like that, starting to build the trees, and I put it here, I put one upstairs, and I started to kind of like start shaping things together. And then I ran into like some early difficulties because trees are shaped pretty differently. They of course will bleed into like other parts of the house. They would break through floors and walls and other such things, and they're a little bit hard to kind of like fuse together in like a really clean way. And so not here, but through here. So like here's like a tree here, and I tried to have like, so here's like kind of a remnant of it, where I have like this is like happens to be an upside down tree, and I wanted to again try to make it kind of bleed up. It ended up looking really messy though, and so it was like, okay, let me do like a fusion of this and rocks, so which are much more adaptable. They're smaller to work with, and I can like segment these things together to start like really creating this shape. I was particularly proud of setting up these acacia trees to kind of come together, even if these like larger branches, they're not that large and they don't look like they would adequately support like this entire roof structure. I thought it was a really cool thing to put together to kind of make a semicircular room in this sense. So you have like that sort of roundness that's coming together. You'll notice the floors and the walls, they basically don't exist. There's very few remnants, at least in this room, of there being like doorways. So you have like a little bit here. I added like some supports to like this spot here, added some pillars to kind of like close up space and to kind of sell the story of, okay, we needed to try to like hobble things together to prevent cave-ins. And so there's like, extra pillars and whatnot that you'll see around here. But for the most part, no floor. I wanted rock to be everywhere. And because of that, there are some difficulties with laying objects down flat and flush because they just didn't. And so that's why throughout the house, you'll see like these boards, these beams or boards of different sizes that help to support and create this foundation. Then I would put furniture and whatnot on top of it. The one of the few exceptions is like setting up a wall here. I was just like, I'm not gonna care about this room too much. This room I actually kind of added a bit later in the build, and I kind of discovered for myself, you know, kitchens are hard. I wasn't, I tried to replicate the kitchen that Stef made. She made a really cool kitchen where she had like kind of like this sort of table here, but then instead of like using platforms to make a sort of granite surface, because we see that a lot, she just straight up used rocks. And I was like, oh, that looks so good. So I tried to replicate that and it just turned out terribly. So I'm like, you know what? Let me kind of shake things up a little bit instead. Let me just have this be mostly a pantry and kind of a rinsing area. And then out here, we'll have the center area. We'll welcome folks in with like this sort of like standing hot pot sort of dealie. For those who aren't familiar with hot pot, you mostly just stand around a thing. You have your bowl, you grab food, you dip it into the soup, you grab it, put it in your bowl, and you nosh. You know, so it's a very social kind of setup. And so there's like space for two, like the chairs that would normally be here. I just kind of have them tucked into the side to kind of like tell that very subtle story of, okay, it's hot pot night. We're just going to have that. Let's tuck the chairs aside, and then we'll enjoy some foods. And then there's just like whatever I happen to have on hand that worked as bottles. I'm like, okay, cool. Here's like the hot pot ingredients. So whatever works. Again, really, really big on the nature. And this, doing this, because this happened to be like the first actual build that I was, first actual house that I built, I had to learn really fast because Steph was like, I want greens. I'm like, cool, you got greens. So I'm experimenting with like lots of different kinds of plants. And thanks to chat, thanks to you guys helped me point out, or you pointed out to me, there's like a Baron's greens and there's a Duskwood one that just work out really, really well. I forgot the names of them off the top of my head, but like here's the Duskwood one, and then the Baron's one is like right here. It's like very flowery, very bright, and they clip really well. You can just kind of plop them anywhere, and it just takes a little bit of movement to create like this very flush looking spot. And I use this to fill out like just about every crack that I had seen in the rocks. Very few exceptions on that. So just kept filling stuff up. Every now and then I would put like a little bit of color here and elsewhere, and just had fun with it, you know. And you know, as the days went by, I just kept kind of filling stuff in, more greens, just kept filling up the space until I like ran out of stuff. I wanted to make the house feel realistic, in the sense that I didn't want to have a lot of stuff, like not too much furniture, nothing that felt excessive. Everything felt like it had like this sort of purpose to it. So I didn't, you know, I would see a lot of builds where I would see like, oh, here's a reading nook, cool. And then there's another one, and here's another one, and here's like another one. So it's cool that we had this restriction of 35 for our room budget. That way the layout would only look, it would only look so big. And because of that, because of the whole nature of this house being basically a big cave, I can only carve out so much space because there's so much that's being taken up by trees and rocks and low roofs and things like that. So it helped to kind of prevent myself from feeling overloaded with, oh man, I need to fill out all these rooms, because that would have been way too much. And I definitely enjoy having like these much tighter spaces to work with. So that way, one, I don't have to put in a lot of stuff, and two, visually it just fills up a lot more space. Yeah, I could just have a lot more here. So the chapel room was something that I also worked on a little bit later in the build too. Like I had it kind of closed off because I was like, okay, I'm going to work with Steph on doing this. I'll get her input and see what she thinks about like how extensive, like how, you know, how grand do I want this chapel to be set up. So when I was talking with her, like I didn't have like the light set up. I had like the beams coming in, and I had this roof set up that I was trying to throw something together, and then I just kind of like, let's see what she thinks. The input that I got from her was like, okay, this looks cool. Just put in more greens. You know, if it looks ruined right now, and there's all this like tree stuff that's coming in, and we can't really remove it, let's just kind of lean into it, and have this whole kind of like salvaged sort of ruined chapel. And so I have like one janky old bench right there for people to sit. She encouraged me to put in like, you know, kind of places to sit and kind of relax in here if people just wanted to like sort of vibe, but not feel like so rigid on top of a chair. This platform I originally put in, and I just was like, maybe I could just build around it. And so I did, just kind of dressing things up with like dirt here, leaves, and then of course the greens. But I really liked playing with the lights here. I wanted to make sure that stuff stayed angled, but I also wanted to emphasize that like the yellow light is only going to exist in this spot because it's currently night inside this house. There's we go into the nighttime skybox room later on, but I had to keep with that consistency. But I really wanted to bring in this yellow light too, so I'm like, okay, I'll keep it confined in the chapel, and then we'll just pretend, hey, it's the holy light that's coming in, sure, whatever, and that's fine. I really liked setting this up though. It's very subtle because I think I need to set this thing to the right lighting. I built this thing with Unnatural Dark in mind, and I left it like that, by the way. So when I'm like setting up like the lights and candles and what have you, it had that in mind. So I had mostly like, I have like some sconces that are going on the side, but then also like later on you'll see some very liberal use of Borealis bottle lamps, which helped out a lot. And there's a visitor, cool. So the lighting here is something that I wanted to emphasize like really strongly, but I wanted to put some particular focus on these plants here. Notice that these they look a little bit bigger than normal for like two reasons. One, I wanted to kind of emphasize, okay, the light's shining down here, the light, it fosters life and growth and all sorts of fuzziness. But also I needed to have like a big light so I can put a Borealis lamp like right in here. So there's like, it's like chilling right over there. And it brightens up the spot. So it helps to sell the illusion of the light shining down from the cracks here in the roof, and it brightens up the spot, because without it, then, well, it wouldn't be nearly as bright. So I wanted to emphasize that. It's pretty subtle though, because you have like this, this kind of glass, this window structure, it's just kind of like blasting the eyes. But I think it really pulled off a good contrast with the unnatural dark, because like here's the shot. You have like this darker frame right down here that helps to kind of cup the brighter shot here, and then you have like this other darkness here that again helps to frame it and put it together. So like, and that's the kind of shot that I wanted to achieve here. And then an altar or whatever. I think when I set these candles down, I just did it really quick, and I'm like, okay, let's see what I can do with this later, and I just never changed it. So sometimes it just kind of worked out, and then I just added things to kind of fill out the space. Again, heavy greens all over the place. Some candles there that are pretty much unnoticeable. Some stuff to fill out space. Greens, more and more greens. So that's that spot. And then throughout here, there's like small little details that are put in. Again, I wanted to be very conservative about things that are being laid out, but still make it feel like this natural space. Like, hey, open book over there, piles of stuff, things that aren't really touched. They just happen to be stored up there a bit more properly. Like, I'm cool with that. And very, very basic pantry. Barrels, some boxes or whatnot, one coffee maker, bunch of sacks of coffee, because, this is me we're talking about. And then I wanted to have like decently sized fruits. Okay, maybe they're big, but decently sized fruits. So I took that this market bin, shoved it in. You can kind of see like there's one market bin there, and then there's one on that side too. But I have like just things that are obscuring it, because I only want to show like a couple things in there. Can I explain the front door? Yeah, absolutely. So the front door is comprised of a couple pieces. So we have some sturdy, two sturdy shelves. So this is one of the few times where you're going to see non-rugged things. Two sturdy shelves that are kind of like pieced together. And then I have five. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounded elven tables. I painted those, or I dyed them like one of the dark golds. And like that was it, so I wanted to keep that kind of like that dark spot. Dressed around it is the Niffin arch right on the side. And then from there, I just kind of like filled it up with a bit more greens and what have you. And it's kind of phased down into the rock. right down there. So really, really tight space that you're climbing in and out of. But of course, it's at least sized well enough that you'll be able, that anyone could be able to fit through it. Yeah. I someone mentioned Hobbit stuff. I'm like, all right, let's take a look at that. And then I was like, you know what? I like what's going on here. I tried a couple of different designs. Some were a bit over designed. I'm like, okay, this is a bit much. Let's just keep like a nice, simple set of planks for the door, and like that'll be it. You know, I could have tried to be a little bit more stylish and, you know, take this and kind of like twist it, make a diagonal sort of shape. But this worked out. I thought about that, and I just never came back to it. So I'm like, oh, you know, maybe it just wasn't that important. So not a huge deal. I think that covers just about everything for like this set, but I also want to kind of emphasize, once we go around to the rest of the place, rugged furniture for the most part. So I stuck with, you know, very orcish stuff. You know, Stef plays as a Mag'har orc. I play as a blood elf, but it just fit better. I didn't want to add anything that was like, okay, let me try to insert like this other kind of culture in here. That might be cool. So I kept things as is. You know, was going like the rugged routes. I didn't dye anything. She was thinking of like going for Frostwolf kinds of colors, but the way that the colors come out, like a Frostwolf colored. Oh, I'm sorry. I had to use Alliance Blue. The Alliance Blue is like the closest thing to like a Frostwolf color, but it looks different on a chair versus a rug, which is kind of like, okay, that's kind of lame. But it's not a problem with like with the decor. It was the lighting that caused the colors to pop differently. So I'm like, okay, it's not going to complement very well. I think sticking with the orange tones works out fine, because it still looks okay under different lighting. So you can see like the contrast here. Like here's some of the yellow light right here, and then here's the blue light down here, and it all happens to like fit fine. It was cool. Like, it was good enough. I think that takes care of this room, or these this set of, oh, the pillars real quick. These pillars, it was very quick whipped together, inspired by some of the Greek stuff that other players put together. So we have like some fancy elven barrels right down there. I don't think I dyed them anything, if I recall. And then these are silver moon beams, 2 of them actually. They're just made vertically. They're in a crisscross, and like that's it. So it makes for a really clean shape. And I didn't want anything too complicated, so that worked out really well. You know, nice and clean, and just kind of like one of the small bits of evidence that kind of tells the story that, okay, this chapel, it existed before, and then like this whole structure, this whole tree, whatever it is, it just kind of grew over it and around it. But then this is something that we were able to kind of like salvage and keep it together, because it helps to hold up this ginormous rock. So it worked out. As we go through this shroud here, we officially go into the next room. So right now we just entered the second stairwell room, and we immediately start to climb. That was the intent. Climb. As we and you'll see here, like we're going around, and we'll backtrack in a bit. So you see how we're climbing, and now around this point, actually it's around here that we reach the top, sort of. And I think it's around here. Actually, I think I can just pull up the map here. I'll go down to this floor here. Yeah, you can't see my character, but then you can see like once we get to this top here, it is here that we cross from one room to another. Yeah. So ahead of me is one room, behind me is another stairwell room. So yeah, it kind of worked out, because we have like this, okay, and here's like a pillar that I saw from before that's downstairs. From here, you have like, you know, this climb here, it's not exactly intentional. I'm actually just trying to obscure more trees, because below me is like more of the, like, here's like some tree stuff. Here was more tree stuff that just happened to just kind of like bleed and clip through things, and I needed to cover it up somehow. And so that's how I did it. I just made more rocks, and I was like, okay, let me just figure out like what I'm going to do here. Originally, though, I wanted to make this sort of path that sort of wound around the room before we cross into like the other stairwell rooms. But in the meantime, as I'm putting things together, and the path is like set, that's when I'm able to like, okay, let me put in more trees here, let me put in some more rocks and other such things to kind of like fill out the space. Now that I have my pathing set up, and then I'll just kind of work it out later. Because now that we're reaching like the second floor of the stairwell room, there's nothing going to be like above this. So I'm like, okay, I can just kind of go nuts with the trees and the greens and what have you as we get to this spot. One of the scarier things, though, was this kind of turn, because I wanted to make a room here. This was originally going to be a bedroom. I was like, all right, it'll be a small bedroom that's like right here. And then we'll like climb up and make this sort of sharp turn, because we're trying to hide trees and whatnot. So I was a little bit scared about making this sort of like sharp turn, because it would sort of like fool the viewer's eyes, because you would initially want to just go right in here. And I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to handle that. Eventually I landed on something like this, where I'll make a sort of like rail that sort of acts like a sort of arrow. And then we'll climb up from here. This string light was one of the more difficult things that I set up. I think I did this like live. It took me a while to like get this thing to line up the way I wanted it to. I'm like, dude, at this rate, this house is going to take me forever. So I was actually in kind of despair when putting this thing. I'm like, why am I having such a hard time putting this thing together? It was I was quite amused. So anyway, I ended up changing my mind, because I'm like, okay, this place is a bit too small for as a bedroom. It's just a little bit too cramped and narrow and long at the same time. So I'm like, okay, this I don't think this will work. Maybe I can like do a bathroom or something like that. But instead I'll make it into the treasure room. Originally, the original plan was for this corner here to be the treasure room. So the idea originally was, okay, I'm going to walk in, and then I'm just going to have all this stuff, and I'm just going to dump it in there. Like, as in like, here's like, it would have been like a trellis, a rugged trellis that was here. And then I would give the kind of vibe of, okay, we're just dumping stuff in here. And then on the side here would be like a door where there'd be like a shelf, and there would be like more stuff there. I didn't like how it turned out, though. It ended up like taking up too much space and cramping things up. So I'm like, okay, let me abandon that idea. I'll return to like a treasure room later. But then it ended up being this spot here. And in hindsight, I loved how it turned out. I really liked. Okay, it's not dark anymore. What happened? I like how it turned out a lot, because I was able to recreate that sense of depth, and then with the lighting, it felt a lot better. Like it was able to come out much better than I thought. Because I was able to make a sort of shot like this, and so again, like I wanted to create this sort of like frame where you have like some contrast here, some darkness. It breaks through a little bit with the light shaft there that comes from a mechagon light, no, a goblin light that's creating the blue light effect. And I thought that pops off really well, because it does this entire illumination. So it does work as an effective like light source, as well as creating the beams, the light beams here, and that worked out really good. But I also wanted to brighten up the space just a little bit more. Like there's one of many Borealis bottle lamps that are around here, and I think I have like another one around here. No, but it was a little bit too dark, so I added one lamp, and that seemed to work out. And then the rest is just like not exactly a filled assortment of stuff, but I just put a bunch of garbage in here. I'm like, let me put something in here: flamingo chairs, tables, other such things that just wouldn't fit. And I wanted to tell that story of how normally we have banks. Champions of Azeroth use banks to like store stuff, but then now that they have a house, it's like, okay, now they need to store their stuff, and it's like they're not doing a very good job of it, and they don't have a staff of goblins or whoever to do that for them. So this is kind of like the results. So this is like true adventuring. but then they're kind of noobs when it comes to organization and stuff. The paintings I wanted to set aside, I didn't really want to put any emphasis on them, but I did want to acknowledge their existence. One thing that that I don't know why I did this, but under there is a sentinel owl. So it's like, ta-da! But then I just covered it with a barrel because I'm like, oh, I wonder if I can obscure the light, but it doesn't really. It still brightens up. But I'm like, I'm just gonna leave it like that. It's fine. But Steph wanted more greens, so of course she gets more greens, and it definitely helped to set this up more, because at first I thought to myself, okay, the greens got cleaned out, but then that wouldn't make sense, because if we're making a big old mess in the treasure room and no one's really messing around with it, I might as well have the greens start coming back in and starting to encroach and cause trouble. Not trouble, but I just wanted to have it be present. And then there's like the little added touch with using the rugged trails here on top. So I intentionally didn't use more rocks to wall that off. I'm like, okay, this will be like kind of a cool thing to help shape the treasure room. Yay. So here's that climb I was talking about. And then as we climb up, you'll notice that we have the Borealis bottle, the string lights here, but I also have a bottle lamp down there, because the string lights don't do anything. They don't actually produce their own light. So I have one down here to kind of set the illusion. Now, I could have done something like have the bottle be suspended and have it added here. I could have done something like that. But I just never got around to it. And I'm like, this is fine. This is one of my favorite shots though, because of just how things sort of like landed and how they ended up turning out. Because again, this was when I was initially planning this, I wanted to create like separate rooms. So I was going to make a dissension that goes down there behind the shroud. And then I was going to carve out some more rooms right over here. So you kind of like go around here, go through the shroud, and then there's like some space there. And then you have like this upper kind of like loft area that was sort of set up. I was going to close this off. I originally wasn't going to have anything here. It would have just been like some Paladin branding as we go up into the bedroom. But eventually I was like, okay, well, let's do some extra fun stuff. Let's go ahead and do the bathroom, but let me backtrack really quick first. But I'm particularly proud of like this setup here, like this shot. It feels unique. It has that cool vibe of, okay, we're going to work with whatever we can to make a sort of living space for ourselves. So I had the idea of, okay, this will be a bedroom, but it's going to be like really open and spacious and stuff. Fewer greens, but they're still around because, hey, maybe I wanted to like keep things a little bit more tidy, so I didn't want too much there. But also Steph was like, dude, more greens. I'm like, okay, sure, I'll do more greens. I mean, because it doesn't hurt. And then like, some little random bits of decor, like the effigy over there. I wanted to like add that, as well as like some of my favorite flowers. I really like this white bluish flower and the way that it pops up. It's a cool contrast. And then finally having the blue light that kind of comes down here. I wanted to have one, for it to come down, but two, to have me try to break it, or my character try to break it by adding like some of these brighter lights to the space here. So back to the bathroom. I wanted to make a ridiculous toilet, but I wasn't sure if I'd be able to like manage it, or I wasn't sure if I would have time. I did in fact have time, so I'm like, all right, cool, toilet, let's go. Yeah, I've seen many toilets, and I finally had to like do my own take on one. So went through the trouble of going through like some of the questing, because I never did it because I wanted to get the arcane toilet paper, of course. And then everything was just kind of like the weird mishmash of different engineering things. But I still wanted to make it feel very Warcraft. So it wasn't going to be, I wanted to make like a mechanical toilet, but I wanted to keep it in the Warcraft style. So here we go, just kind of like, smashing like these kinds of things together, but not trying to warp the meaning of it into something else. Like, oh, here's the lever, here's the plumbing and all that. It wasn't going to be that realistic. It was going to be, strictly like landing on the whole fantasy of things. And the same sort of thought process went into the shower. That's not really a shower because I'm a lazy butt. You know, I just kind of like stand there. There's the drain, water comes down, cool, good to go. And I just kind of obscured some of the lighting with like other engineering parts. And then I just had like one mirror, and this happens to be one of the spotlights again. I'm like, okay, here's my sink. It's just like, oh, I don't know why it does that. There's no story behind that. It's just, you know, magic, electronic water, something like that. Yeah, just like random stuff. And again, like really big emphasis on trying to kind of hold things together and trying to make comfortable spaces out of like this cave. So lots of usage of these planks that are like laid down, specifically angled in such a way to make the actual climb for the camera feel good. But also, you know, again, pull off that vibe of, hey, we're just trying to put things together. You know, same thing happens here. You know, I'm laying down foundations for like some furniture. Happens here, and you see it elsewhere. Like here it is for the table, not so much for the bed. Puppies, everyone loves puppies. And then like the little bits of branding. You know, so as we leave the room, you can see how like the greens sort of come back, but then they sort of go away in that space. So it kind of tells the brief history of like when I was like, okay, I'm not that big on the greens, but it's growing on me. Get it? Growing on me. Really good. This room, I wanted to let Stef have the most control over it. The main thing for me was like the shaping of it. So like this particular climb was actually kind of like a pain to put together. I wanted to, and this is definitely where I started like, okay, I'm going to lay down planks all over the place to make the climbs easier. Like I didn't have to have the pillar there. I didn't need to use these. I could have just used another rock, but instead I was like, you know what, let me add some character into this as well. So I just used the planks, the beams instead. Again, they're angled they're angled very slightly to make the climb like a little bit smoother and not make it feel too bouncy. And I wanted to prevent people from being obscure. So that's why this pillar is here, because otherwise there's like some sort of like barrier or something invisible there that's kind of like messing with people. So instead I just put a barrier there instead. So you can see it's still kind of there, but it's mostly gone. Mostly gone. I'll say over in Stef's room, and now we're climbing down again. Again, with the whole level furniture sort of thing, this wall has been problematic. Like that's the bug that we were talking that Blizzard referred to before, where you go into the room and then things kind of shift around. This wall was one of them, so I just embraced it. I'm like, you know, I'll just let it be like that, and I'll adjust this foundation to be like something more realistic, or to be something that like kind of makes sense. So inside the little bedroom right here, this was tough because I wanted to have like a decent space to serve as a bedroom, but there just wasn't enough. I couldn't really I was trying to. I couldn't really carve out the kind of space that I wanted, but the room itself is very spacious. You know, we have like a whole thing for a vanity, and this worked out fantastic because I'm like, okay, she's a big makeup person. I'll go ahead and set this up, and then we'll get her input later. She gave her input, more greens, products, things like that. So we had that stuff added on top of the foundation furniture here. But I also lowered it. You can kind of see here how it clips, because I wanted to make the size look semi-realistic, or something that felt plausible. Because that's something that you'll see me do a lot when I do the visits. I'll be like, okay, how do I look on the size here? Which isn't a really big deal, but I wanted it to be a big deal here because, you know, this is our stuff. Here I got lazy with the bathroom. I just did the outhouse instead, but I did want to create like a nice peaceful and cozy space that was sort of out of the way. So that's why the bathtub here is finally here at the bottom with the greens to set up that vibe. The plumbing here. This was inspired by another build that I looked at where they had like the Samfish as well as the Borealis totem. No, Tide Sage totem act as like, okay, here's like this sort of like falling waterfall kind of thing. I have that over in the engineering bathroom as well. But this one, a lot more natural. And then Steph had it dressed up a little bit more, flowers in the water, candle going, chalice to enjoy some drinks. And then right back, once she's dressed, get dressed and all that stuff, check out how awesome she looks, and then get right to like the makeup and all that stuff over there. This is where Steph kind of threw down. She's like, yo, I really want to have like this here. I'm like, okay, so let's do it. So she bought it, and as well as a bunch of those chandeliers. There's like, I think there's like 7 of them kind of like crammed together. I think I forget how many. And this is kind of a pain to rotate and piece together in such a way that it created like this whole singular but really big chandelier piece. And thankfully it doesn't like do too much to brighten the space. I was kind of worried that it was going to kind of like take over with the lighting, and you can see like everything down here is like this whole shade of purple against the rough orange colors here. But I also wanted to point out, okay, it's not just the holy light that produces life, it's also like this kind of stuff too. So I just add a whole bunch of greens on top of all of this. Yeah, doing all that was fun. Yeah, this here, it used to be a curtain. So it was kind of going to have like one entrance there. But then once Steph had recommended like something like this, I'm like, okay, I'll put it here, and then I'll just close this off. So it's kind of walled off now. Yeah. So we climb up, yada yada yada, and then we proceed this way. So I had like cute little signage that was put up. It's not perfect. Like this actually rotated a little bit since yesterday, but oh well. And here now we enter again what I consider another one of the more weaker rooms. As I was putting it together, I was having a pretty hard time with deciding like what I want to do with that space, because I want it to be kind of minimal. Again, I didn't want to have like, a whole bunch of like reading spaces, things like that, just kind of like necessary stuff. So like you'll notice like the kinds of bookshelves here are all unique. There isn't like one of the same thing. I didn't even add a whole lot of like extra books because I was starting to run out. And I'm like, what, it's not a big deal, but I did want to give some life to it, so there are like some books lying around here and there to kind of show like, okay, they were like, it looks lived in, there were people who were hanging out, and then greens, of course. This particular chandelier, I believe it's the dark iron chandelier, this produces a unique kind of lighting. Like you'll notice here that the light, it kind of lights up the whole room, even though I'm in unnatural dark. And then you have like little sconce there, but it lights up the whole room, but it's nothing that's like super blinding. And I think that kind of comes from, maybe that's kind of a vanilla thing, or maybe that's when they like designed this thing to not be super bright. But it's cool in the sense that, it does offer light to the entire room without like blinding anyone. So I didn't have to do anything weird with like the resizing. Like the Tusk chandelier, that does a really good job of brightening up a space, but it's also very intense. So using something like that, you get like a really intense light, like where it's at its focal point, but then as you increase the distance, it falls off really fast. Here, it's a very wide light, but it's just not as strong. But yeah, it wasn't a very strong room that I had set up. So I guess so what I did instead, I set up these planks here to kind of set up a whole like, okay, I'm gonna walk through here because I usually just walk through here. I don't come in here like that often. But when I do, I'll like sit and read. And then again, you see like this emphasis on like foundations that are being set up to hold up all the furniture, because then otherwise it would be all awkward and it would sit all funny. And again, just emphasizing here, like rocks everywhere, rocks here, rocks there, trees, and what have you. And then we start to be let outside. And this took a lot to put together too, because I wanted to maintain the illusion of like what happens when we go outside. So I'm like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go big on the trees, but I also need to go kind of big on these like kind of supporting foundations. So at one point I had big acacia trees that were skinning like this part here too. But then it started to feel a little bit too tight, a little bit more cramped than I wanted it to be. And this is supposed to be like this kind of like this airy sort of like transition as we go. So I created the staircase, because I wanted to have this immediate elevation as we go outside, because I wanted to set up the illusion of, okay, we're high up now. And I think I did a pretty decent job of us being like in the middle of like this really like large tree. And now we're coming out on like this sort of like elevation. So there's still more tree to go. Yeah, that's why above us, not to the side, but above us, there's like even more tree. And it sets up this whole thing of like, okay, it kind of opens up. You know, I could have added more tree here, but then I would just, it looked awkward when I just made more and more tree and it was just filling out more and more space. And it didn't quite like sit right. I didn't want it to encroach like too much. So it just ended up like landing like this. But I wanted to make like a relatively small porch or platform. And the whole point really was, again, the branding. So one chair, that's it, that I wanted to have set up. And it was mostly for eventually when we go on the tour. When Blizzard comes in, they sit on the chair, they look at the thing, oh my God. So that was very much the intent. And then out here, we just have like a couple of lights going. You'll see, again, we have like some uses of the Borealis lights around here to add like some like little spotty areas here of illumination. I really like this sconce because it has like this, it has this kind of pulsing light to it if you like watch it for a little bit. So I really want to have something like that coming out, at least definitely on this outside area, to give that sort of vibe. You know, okay, it's we're at this kind of like, I don't know, like a tiki bar or whatever. But I really like the effect here. I felt I provided like some barriers here to just kind of direct visitors to be like, okay, again, the focal point is just like come out here, but limit the space by a lot. And then use the rest as like just kind of dressing for the illusion. And then finally, the branding. So this was set up, and I guess I should, I know I explained this a bunch, but yeah, I guess this is for the sake of the recording. The way this is set up is by using a kind of stencil. And I don't think I have the stencil stuff set up. Is it here? Nope, that's different. Actually, I think I need to change this up here. Sorry, I'm gonna make that go away. So I set up a stencil like this. I just took the WoW logo, made the sort of transparency. I don't think this character is able to do it, but the way you do this is, you know, you sit, so you have a single point. You zoom the camera all the way inside, and then you just kind of line up, you know, where you want the shape to be, and then you fill up the space. So in this case, I'm using filigree lights. They only cost 10 Dragon Isles resources, so they're fairly cheap. And I just took about 300 of these things, and I slowly put them together. So outside, I'm going to leave the logo there, sorry. Outside here, I had put... Oh, shucks, you can't even see my mouse cursor. Oh, no, that's terrible of me. Hold on, let me make sure that thing shows up. Because I think, yeah, that'll help direct folks. So outside here, I just laid out a whole bunch of the filigree lights within a certain radius and range. That's basically accompanies like this whole space here. Laid them all down, and then, you know, I sit down, put up the stencil, and then I just use advanced mode. I just drag them back up, one at a time. Each and every one. Let me see if this is set up correctly. No, it's not. So I used a different character for this, and what you do is you program a certain camera angle, and you can do that through the option. You know, go to options, go to key bindings, and camera. There we go. So here you can set, and you can save the view, which is what I did, and then you just set it by hitting the number again, you know, whatever you want your keybind to be. So that way, if your camera happens to reset, if you step away, whatever, you'll be able to bring the stencil right back here again. And so I just did that, and I just kept doing that until it came together. You know, so you have like the spread look like this when you're not sitting in that position, and then once you do, you know, again, you have to move your camera all the way inside. That's how you get the branding. Now, the conditions here, again, they're very specific. It's not just placing the object. It's not just having the chair. It's the kind of chair. That matters too. So like a different chair will sit differently. If I were to move this chair one grid level thing to like the next, that's going to mess it up too. If I use a different character, so if I use a goblin or a Vulpera, that's not going to work. It's going to make the illusion look entirely different. A Draenei will sit just fine, and it'll show up perfectly. A Lightforged Draenei will not show up correctly. So it's very picky. And so when I was setting this up and telling Blizzard, I'm like, hey, can you make sure that you use like these kinds of races? Like, don't use this, don't use this, don't use this. And so when the time came when we were doing, and their production team was doing all the camera work, they were on human characters, male human characters, and that worked out. So yeah, that's a lot of it, or that's most of it. Just kind of emphasis, like again, like we really wanted to stay on theme. We wanted to keep things like relatively grounded. So that's why you see, again, lots of like the rugged, a lot of the rugged furniture is being used here and there. Tried our best to, again, create like this illusion of like the trees out here. Like these are actually wine, those big old wine barrel kinds of things. And instead of it just trying to contain the trees, it's kind of like trying to act as like a sort of like barrier here instead. But yeah, I wanted to like smooth this out. I didn't want it to just clip through. It just wouldn't have looked right. Greens wouldn't have looked right either. And so going this route here with like kind of like this sort of like barrier setup, and then greens in other places, that seemed to like work out. What program did I use for the overlay? I'm definitely doing something like this later. So I'm using my capture software. So I use Open Broadcaster Studio, or OBS. And what you can do, this is going to look totally terrible in the recording, I'm sorry. But what you can do is, when you have things set up, you would set your source. Here, I'm going to go to like this thing again. And I just have like this stencil set up. So that way, and you need another monitor for this too. This way I can have this like off to the side somewhere, and then I can, move my camera to like where I want it to be. And then from there, I'm looking at OBS as my screen. So then I'm like grabbing objects and I'm placing them in, and then you can start lining things up. So that would be how you set up the whole overlay sort of thing. And OBS is free. You can go ahead and like pick it up wherever. Doesn't cost nothing. I had to use Photoshop to create that stencil though. Like I just found I just found an image of it, and then I traced around it to create the image, shaped in such a way that I'd be able to like fit everything in. And that's it.